Well, hello Internet, and welcome to part 4 of my web services tutorial. I have received countless numbers of requests to make a translation app, and so what I'm going to do in this tutorial is actually make a translation web service. Now we're going to start off, this is going to be a multi-part tutorial. I'm going to start off by making it work inside of a browser, and then in the next video I'll actually transfer it and make it work as a web service that we will then use in an Android application. So why don't we just jump in and show exactly what it's going to look like when it's all finished. Okay, so here it is. Now, basically the way this works is translation app, and if I didn't include your language that you would like to see here, I apologize. I just picked a whole bunch at random. But basically, let's say I just type in, I fell off the chair. What it's going to do is it's automatically going to output this in all of these different languages using basic simple word replacement. But as you can see, if I just come in here and I grab French, for example, and then I jump over to Yandex, which is a great translation tool, and I type in, there we go, you can see it translated to I fell off the chair. So it works pretty well, and I used the top 6,000 most common words in the English language to basically put this database together, and in this tutorial I'm going to actually show you how I did that. Now, as you can see, here are all the English words, and there's 6,000 of them. And then I also went in here and, using Yandex, I translated these into Arabic and Chinese and Danish and Dutch and French and German and all the other different things that you saw right there. And of course, I'm going to have all of these files saved, and you'll be able to download them, do whatever you want with them on your own. And there's a link in the description underneath the video. But to be able to use all of these different characters, you're going to have to make sure that MySQL is set up to use what is called UTF8. And to do that, let's just close this all together here. Let's say that I am on a Mac. I'm going to show you how to do it with Windows as well. But if I'm on a Mac, I want to go into Finder, this guy right here, and I want to go, and then I want to go to folder, and then the specific folder I want to use is etc, exactly what you see here. It's /etc/ and click on go. And then I want to open up my.cnf. This is going to be the file you're going to have to change to make MySQL work with UTF-8. And here is my.cnf, and what you're going to have to do inside of here is add this line right here, and I have also a link to this file in the description. And then you're also going to have to add this right here. You might have the MySQL in here, you might not, and then you're going to have to add these 3 lines right here, and then save that. And then close MySQL on your computer and then restart it. And I also will put links to my MySQL and my PHP tutorial down in the description. This is a big thing here, guys, so there's a lot of things you need to know. Okay, after we have that set up, now we're going to jump into MySQL and set up the whole entire database. So here I am inside of MySQL, and we're going to be loading those language files that you saw previously into MySQL. And so to do that, you're going to have to change the way you log in. So I'm going to go MySQL 5, you might be MySQL, I leave that up to you. And then you're going to have to type in -- local, because we want to upload local files, in file equal to 1, -u, and my user ID I'm using here is MySQL admin, and then -p, and then I'm going to type in my password right here. So here I am, I'm logged into MySQL. Now what I need to do is create my database. Well, let's use the correct style here. Create database. You of course don't need to have those be uppercase. And I'm going to create one called language. There we go. There's the database. Now I'm going to use a very specific user whenever I'm on the web, and it's going to be accessing this database when it's all finished up. And I'm just going to set it up right now, and we're going to use the language. The only thing it's going to be able to use is the language database, and I'm just granting it the ability to use the select statement whenever it is referencing the language database, and that is just going to allow it to retrieve information. It's not going to allow it to change it or delete it or do anything else. So this user right here that's going to be on the web has very little control over the database, which is good because that helps with security. If all you can do is retrieve information, there's not much damage you can do. And I'm going to call localhost. Now that's going to be different for you if you're using a different server or anything except for localhost. And then you type in identified by, and then you type this user's password. and there you go. Now that user is going to be able to access and only use the select statement whenever it is referencing the database inside your code. We'll see that code here in a second. Then I want to switch over to the language database. There we go. Another thing we want to do to make sure that MySQL is set up properly. Now remember, whenever you change the my.cnf file, you want to stop the MySQL server and then restart it. If you do, whenever you type in show variables like character and then your %, pop that in there, you're going to just see UTF-8 listed here, UTF-8, UTF-8, binary, UTF-8, UTF-8, and UTF-8. Okay, if you don't see that, then you need to make sure you check my config file and update that and do everything that I just told you to do. You could alternatively go in and alter the database itself, but I like to use UTF-8 all the time, and I'm just going to show you this just to show it to you. So language, and then default, and then character, set, UTF-8, collate, and this is saying that you want to use UTF-8, but you specifically want to use UTF-8, Unicode, and then case insensitive. Underscore. Case insensitive, like that. Okay, you could do that, but if you went and changed the configuration file that I told you about, you don't need to do that. So I'm just going to cause an error. Get rid of that. Another thing you want to make sure you do is with these text files that you have all of these foreign names inside of, they have to be saved as UTF-8 files before you can load them into MySQL. If you don't, it's going to cause problems. If you're on PC, use Notepad++. If you are on a Macintosh, use Text Wrangler, and how you're going to save it is save as. And you can see right here, Unicode, UTF-8, and then Unix is perfectly fine. So that's how you want to save these files. Make sure you do that, otherwise you're going to have all kinds of problems. Okay, back inside of MySQL. Now what I want to do is come in and create all of my tables. So I'm going to say create table, and this is MySQL, and the first one I'm going to create is the English, and then I'm going to have a word, which is going to have a variable number of characters, and let's say that 60 is the maximal size that we expect, and not null because I want to make sure we have one. And then I'm going to say English ID, integer, and we're going to do this for every single language. So all you're going to do is change this to English, Spanish, Russian, whatever, and not null. And this is going to auto increment because I don't want to have to worry about putting that in. And this is going to act as the primary key. And then I'm going to close this off, and character set is going to be UTF-8. Now this is a lot of stuff right here I'm covering. You might not know it. I'm basically skipping over going into all the errors you can get whenever you're trying to use UTF-8 inside of MySQL. So this works, what I'm showing you here. And that is going to create that table. And if we want to say show tables, and you can see exactly right there that it is in there. And then we could go describe English, and you can see right there. See word, it's a little messy, but that is exactly what I just created. Now if we want to load this data in, and you have to be in the directory inside of MySQL where these files exist. Okay, so you'll have to go and change your directory until you get inside of the right directory to be able to load these. Well, let me jump out and actually show you what I mean. So if we go out of here and I type in ls, you're going to see right here that English words. See, I'm in the directory where I have all my language files stored. Okay, so let's log back into MySQL. There we go, and I'm back in MySQL. And then I'm going to say that I want to use language and show tables again, just make sure. There we go. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is load all of this data into my database. So we're going to say load data and local, because it's in the directory that I currently reside where I executed or opened up MySQL. And I'm going to say English words, text, which is where they exist, into table, English, and then each of the words has a new line after it, so terminated by, and then it's going to be new line. That's going to teach the database exactly how to pull in all of these words and store them. And then I'm going to have the IDs auto increment by giving them the value of null. And there you can see all of those files went and loaded in there, and we could do a quick select from English, and there you can see all the words. There's 6,035 in each one of those. Now I'm going to use those exact same commands to load all the other languages in here. So if I want to create an Arabic table, there it is. There is everything that I want to load in there. And feel free to pause. And then if I want to go in here and load in all the Arabic words, boom. Create the Chinese table and load in all of the Chinese words. And we can come in here real quickly and make sure that those loaded. And there you can see there's the Arabic. And then we can come in here and change this to Chinese. And there you go. There's all the Chinese symbols. So that's pretty cool. And there is the Danish table. And load the Danish words. There we go. And I'm going to do this for the rest of the languages. You don't need to watch that. Okay, so all of them are loaded in now, and you can see exactly how I did that right there. The only thing that might be different here is I have character set UTF8 and correlate to that. I shouldn't have to do that because, again, of the configuration changes that I made, but I'm basically covering all my bases here just in case something doesn't work for somebody. Okay, and once again, this is just saying that I'm using UTF8 character set and specifically UTF8 general, and I'm ignoring case. Okay, and ignoring case means uppercase and lowercase letters don't matter. Alright, so got that all set up. And again, all of that is available and link in the description because definitely there's no reason to type all that out when you can copy and paste it. Okay, so let's just do a simple little query here. Let's say we want to return the word and the index for each of my list of words. And this is going to play into my example next, in which I'm actually going to show you how my code is going to work and make some sense of it. So I'm going to say select English ID and word, and from, let's use the English table obviously, and let's obviously spell from right, from English, and then we're going to say where word, and then we'll use in, and then we're going to pop in all of the different words that they typed in. And we're going to automate this, of course. So, and this is going to be pretty much exactly the way we're going to query the database. Okay, so they type in I like dogs. I'm going to get that. I'm going to create this select statement right here, and then I'm going to get the output. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and get these IDs, and then I'm going to go and get the matching words for the IDs that I have right here, and show them on the screen. That's basically what this application is going to do. And why don't I just show you that? So let's get rid of that. And I'm then going to build, select, let's say we want to use Spanish here, word and Spanish ID from the Spanish table in our database, where Spanish ID is in, and then we pass in the ID numbers. Let's do this a little bit different. Let's type in 76, 17, because I'm going to show you a little bit of a problem that we have to work around. So let's say we want the words in that order, 76, 17, and then 16, 79. Well, if we execute it like that, it's going to put the words in, but it's going to do it in the wrong order. So what I'm going to have to do here is specify the order, and how I'm going to do that specifically is by using the case statement inside of the order. So let's say here. So you can see right here, I want it in the order of 76, 17, and 1679, and it gave it to me in 1776 and 1679. So I'm going to change that, is come in again and say select, and let's just do English ID, so you'll see the words. And I want the English ID, and I want the word, specifically from the English table, where word in, and then let's just type something like here are some dogs. Well, then if I want them in the proper order, I have to say order by case, and then I'm specifically going to look for word in the results, and then I'm going to say when here, then that's going to be the first item in the list. If they type in that, and we're going to programmatically create all these things and put them in order. Then, if it's R, I want that second in place. When some is what they type in, I want that in the third place. And then when dogs, I want that in the final or fourth place. Then I have to type in end to end the case statement, and whenever I do, you're going to see that here are some dogs are going to come back in order because I used the case statement. And there they are. Here are some dogs, even though their indexes are not in order. Okay, so we worked through a lot of problems. Now let's jump over into PHP and write the code. And just so we are 100% clear, these are the main 5 things we need to do with our code. We need to take the words that they provide in the form, on HTML, put those words in an array. Then we need to output the words into using a select statement. We need to retrieve the matching IDs from that select statement is going to generate. Then we need to create a function also that receives the language that we want to translate to. So if we're going to be translating from English to another language, we're going to pass in a variable that says Russian or something, and then it's going to convert from English to Russian. And then inside of that same function, we're going to issue the select that's going to return all the matching translated words, and then we have to display them on the screen. So those 5 things are what we need to do with our code. Okay, so here we are. Another thing we're going to need to do, remember we went and granted Student Web the ability to use the select command on our language database. Well, make sure this is language, not languages. So we got Student Web, that's user, here's the password, here is the local host, and language is the database specifically that it's going to be using. Of course, this is just a MySQL I connect file that's going to be used to get a connection to our database that we're going to use in our code, and it gets that by passing all those things that you see right there. So now we need to go in and actually create our PHP application, and let's make sure we save it in the right place. You need to save it wherever your web server is, so that's going to be different for everybody, but on Macintosh that is library, web server, and then documents, okay? And you're also going to see right here, there is the MySQL I connect files. So we are going to save it inside the documents folder, and I am going to call this translation.php and save it. And also make sure this is a UTF-8 file, and there we go. Now inside of this, since it's a PHP file, of course we're going to need the opening and closing tags for PHP. Another thing we want to do is make sure that whoever or whatever program is reading this knows the content type. Again, these are all things that would make you pull your hair out if you didn't know about using UTF-8. It's a nightmare. Okay, so, but I solved the nightmare for you. So UTF-8, and now everybody's going to know what type of data you're going to be passing inside of here, and you don't need to worry about anything. Just make sure this is first line in your code. Very important. Alright, so then we need to require our database connection file, which is the MySQL I connect language. This guy over here. Make sure I got the right one open. Yes, language, that guy. Because this guy is going to connect me to the database, so I need to make sure that I include it. Connect language.php. Alright, now we'll get our database connection. Then we want to also set the character set in PHP to UTF-8, you guessed it. So to do that, we take our database connection and we set our character set to UTF-8, right like that. And then we're actually going to have our translate function that is going to receive the language we want to translate to. And I don't know exactly what that's going to do, but I'm going to define it here first off, and there it is. So we'll fill that in here whenever we think about it in a second. Okay, after that, and I'm also going to come in here, close this function translate, because I always like to do that. Okay, so the very first thing that I'm going to want to do inside of here is create the form that is going to allow them to send me the words that they want translated. So action http /localhost, and then this is called translation.php, and then the method that is going to be used is the post method in this situation. I'm going to translate this into a web service, but you know, you can't just jump right into that. You want to test things. That's one of the reasons why people pull their hair out about PHP, is they try to do things too quickly and then they get a nightmarish number of errors and then they give up. So we have English written there, and then we're going to have our input, and this is going to be text, and I'm going to give it the name of English words, and then size is equal to, I don't know, let's say 100, and then we'll have value equal to nothing, and then we'll close that off, and then we'll close off our paragraph, just keeping this really simple. And then let's do another paragraph tag and input, and this one's going to be submit. Name, just keep it simple, make it submit. Value, again submit. Close our paragraph tag, and our form is closed. And while we're down here, we might as well go in and also close our database, because I know I need to do that. So reopen PHP and call MySQL I, close the database, and then you just pass it the database connection. Again, we got all this from this guy right here, this file MySQL I connect language, that guy. And then we're just going to close off that. So we are going to first check that this was actually, or information was submitted. So we're going to come in here and we're going to say if, because this is going to call itself, is set and underscore post. Okay, so we want to make sure that information was actually submitted, and that's where we're going to do that. Then we're going to make sure that English words were passed over, this right here, that there were actually words passed in. So we want to verify that that was not empty. Post English words, And if they did go in there and not put anything, let's say we want to say echo, enter some words in English, new line and whatever. But else, if they did enter some words, first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to trim any white space from those words, because white space doesn't play a role with our translation app. So just trim, post, and we can get the English words that were passed over. Easy enough. What else do we want to do? Well, I said previously in the slide that I want to put them in an array. So English, let's call this array. There we go. And to actually put those into the array, I'm going to call explode, and all those words are going to be separated by a space. English words, right like that. And then I'm also going to want to hold the indexes, because that's actually what's most important whenever I'm translating. So I want to go and store the indexes as they are found. And then I need to begin my query, and I showed you the queries before. It is going to be select English ID and word from English, and then where word in, and that's it. Now I need to actually get the words and put them in there. So I'm just creating the select statement that I want to use here. I then want to make sure that my words show in order, so I'm also going to be storing all that. Remember, if I jump over here, this is basically what I'm creating. Select, see this right here, and then that. Well, I'm also going to need these words used here. I'm going to have to use the words here, and then I'm also going to have to use them here. So that's why I have two different arrays that I'm storing all these words in. Okay, so I'm going to call this order by case, order by case, word, and I'll put a space inside of there. And then I'm also going to want to increment as I go through here. So because the increment is this right here, so this, that's what this is going to be used for. So I can have a never-ending supply of words and it's still going to work. So the increment, and it's going to always start off with the value of 1, so put that in there. And then I just create a for each, and I'm going to cycle through all of the English array words that were passed in as, and let's give them a value of word, temporary holding space, move that up. And then I'm going to take my query and make it equal to itself, and then just add in the things that I want. Now I want the words to be surrounded by double quotes, and word is going to go in there temporarily. The for each basically cycles through the array, and each individual word temporarily gets stuck in there, and then it goes to the next index and stores the next word in there. Okay, so that's how that works. And then I have to finish surrounding that with double quotes, and also I'm going to have a comma inside of there. And then I'm going to do similar thing for the part that's going to be the case statement. So case is going to be equal to itself again, order in case. And then I'm going to go when and put the double quotes inside of there again. Let's go down to the next line so it's easier to find. And then I'm going to put word inside of here, move that over, close it off, and then put then, close that off, and then I'll put my index, right like that. And then put another space inside of there. Well, now I need to get my index increment and increment it. And the only problem here is whenever I am adding all these commas need to be here, but I don't want them in the final result. So I'm going to just get my query, and I'm going to right trim off any extra commas that'll be there. Just put the comma inside of there, and there we go, got rid of that. And then of course I'm going to want to finish off the query. Here's the query again. So I want to finish this off by putting in the order by information that was created, and then I also want to put end at the very end of it. And I'm going to do that by getting the query part, and then I'm also going to have to put a closing bracket on there, and then put the order in case part like that, and then finally put a space and end with a semicolon. And there we go. Okay, so the query has been created. Now what I need to do is issue the query. So I'm going to go response is equal to, and call MySQL I query, and get a database connection and send it the query that we just nicely put together. I am then going to create an array that's going to contain the matching IDs, because I'm going to use those to then translate. And let's say that in this situation I want to put English and print that out on the screen. Maybe do that for all the languages, and then check if there was a response while I need to cycle through all of the results, and those are going to be stored in the row temporarily. And how we get each row of data is fetch array, and we pass in the response, and as it goes through here, whoop, don't put that semicolon there, silly, there you go. And if I want to print out that information on the screen, I can just go row and then say word, because that is in the database, the part of the database I want, and then put a space. And this is just going to print out all the English words and matching IDs. And here I'm going to store this so that I can get a translation for all of the other different translation languages I want to use. And it's going to be row. And if I want to get it, I just say English ID. And then also this guy here is going to hold the array after the select. So array after query row, and there it is. Okay, whenever I'm all done with that, I want to, like this just printed all the English words out on the screen. That's what this guy did. And now what we need to do is create the translation part that is going to allow us to use a function to translate into any other different language we'd want to use. So we go back up here. If you have any problems with coding and so forth, it's probably one of these curly brackets or something. Feel free to go and use the code on my site. I mean, you can use a website like diffnow, D-I-F-F, now.com, and compare my code to your code, and it'll keep you from pulling your hair out. Okay, so what I'm going to do here now is translate into different languages. So what type of information am I going to need passed? Well, I'm going to need the language that we want to translate to, and I'm also going to need the matching IDs, of course, because that's going to tell me what to pull. And let's also pass in a database connection. I think that's all we need. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to do, we are going to take whatever they passed in here. So let's say this is Russian, and let's put Russian, let's build Russian ID. So translate ID, and this is going to be used in the query we're going to issue. And to do that, to know which ID that we'll need to look up, we just go translate to dot, and then we'll put an underscore and ID. Okay, so that's for that other part of the database, the other column in the database. Don't know what I mean? See, over here where I have English ID, each one of these is set up, of course, to be Russian ID or Spanish ID. That's what I just built. This right here, so I can use it in queries. And then I'm going to start building my query. Then I'm going to issue. You already saw the query. Showed it to you. Translate query is equal to, let's use individual, and we'll say select. And we just want the word this time. We have no interest in the ID because we're going to print this directly out on the screen. From, and then we'll say translate to. That's the table we're going to use in our database. Put another period inside of there. And then we will say where. Make sure that we put this inside quotes. And then this is where we're going to use the translate ID, translate ID, and then we're going to do the in part, close that off, and that's going to be the beginning of our select statement we're going to use. And then we'll just go in here for the for each, and we'll just cycle through the matching IDs that we have here, store them temporarily in the variable named ID. Inside of this, we'll say translate query is equal to translate query, and then put in the ID here, and then we'll end that with a comma. So this is real easy. Translation here. And then we'll have to remove the last comma that was left inside of there. So query is equal to our trim, translate query, and we want to remove the last comma. And then we'll handle the case part, translate. We don't need to store all that because everything's already stored. We know exactly what the IDs are and in what order they're in. Why can't I spell translate today? There we go. Query, dot, and then we'll close that off. And then we'll have order by, case, close that off. And then we'll put translate ID in here. So all I'm doing is building those select statements. That's all I'm doing. This isn't rocket science. Again, we're going to come in here, index increment is equal to 1. And again, this is for the case statement. So it's this guy right here, those ones, okay? Same exact thing we had before, except in this situation, we're going to be using the IDs here, okay? Want to know exactly what it looks like? Let's just clear scroll back. There it is. So in this situation, I'm translating from English to Russian. This is exactly what I built. You can see the IDs right there. You can see the Russian ID, which I stored in a variable name. And there you go. And that popped back the words that I want. So this is all I'm doing is building this guy right here. Okay? So now for the case statement part, I just go for each, and I'm going to use matching IDs again as temporarily called ID, and then we can just go translate query is equal to translate query, and then follow that with when, which you just saw the when part in the MySQL terminal, period there, and then we'll put with the ID, which we are going to then increment, and then we'll put the word then, and then we can also come in here, I can put this up here, and put the index underscore increment, and then we'll put another space after that, and then of course we want to increment index increment. Okay, after we have all of that set up, we need to put the end at the end of it. So translate query, let's just copy this, translate query like that. This is outside of the for each block, like this, and then at the very end of it we're going to type in end and a colon, and there we go. Okay, so now we have that select statement set up. We're almost done. All we have to do is issue the query to the database and print out the results. So call this translate response is equal to MySQL underscore query, pass in my database connection, and then pass in the query, translate query. Let's say that since we're here, maybe we want to print the language we're going to be translating into uppercase letters, and to do that we just go translate to underscore 2 that was passed into this function, and then let's also say that we want to print out a colon because we did that with English. There we go. And then if translate response, like I said, this is just a test. All this code, I mean this code is going to be reused, but this is just a test to make sure we can then change it into a web service. That's the way can do things sort of in pieces and not get confused with PHP. Array, and then it's gonna, as long as it has a response, it's gonna keep on printing out words, translate text, and it's gonna separate each one of these words here with a space, and that's all that while loop's gonna do for us. And then after it's done, of course, it's gonna echo out the final text, which is gonna be the translated text. Pretty awesome. Okay, so everything works there, and the rest of this is just basically just silliness. Right here before all the code is closed, if we want to print this out, we're just going to go translate Arabic, for example, and then we're going to pass into it matching IDs, which is the IDs that we got whenever we called the English table, and a database connection. And then we could go echo, throw a break statement in there, and then do this, keep calling the translate function over and over again with all the other different languages. And if you do that, you come in here, fell over, the dog and cat fell over, and there you can see is all the translations for that silly phrase. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I covered an insane amount of information. Again, everything you need is in the description. Go download the stuff, test it, play around with it. If you get any errors, that's going to be very, very common because this is a lot of complicated stuff. And as always, please leave any questions and comments below. Otherwise, till next time.